Good afternoon. Are you tired? Are you overwhelmed? Well, let's take a second to just breathe. So, breathe in, breathe out. One more time. Breathe in, breathe out. I know this weekend is filled with lots of excitement, and I also know that there's a lot of anticipation of even tomorrow, especially for you as parents. And for me, I recognize the fact that our students did not get here on their own. They are here because of you, and they are here ready to start because of all the tools that you have given your son or your daughter so that they can start this season well. I'm a mom. I have a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old, so they're not old enough to be here yet. They'll be here tonight playing at the carnival and things. But my goal as a mom, my husband and I, we've been married for 20 years, and our goal is to give them as much information as well as much tools as they can have so that they can figure out what to do once they grow up, right? And I want them to know, okay, what does it look like for them to deal with friends that are mean to them, and teaching them, you don't just ignore them, you tell them no, or engage so that you know how to become resilient in places that might be difficult. If you need help, you need to ask your teachers or whatever it may be. So all the things that you've heard even this morning from Dr. Davis saying, go to class, to go and meet your faculty in the classroom, to just variety of things. All those pieces were already taught by you because that was something that you must have instilled in your children, just like the way I am trying to do for my kids. And so I wanted to let you know that we feel so honored, and we also recognize the privilege and the responsibilities that we have as student affairs, as faculty and staff on our campus, that we get to now do that life part with your students. It started yesterday, actually, but we'll continue to do so. And today, in this session, we wanted to give you some tools in your toolbox because tomorrow will be hard, right? And I recognize that. I have a friend in this group right here. She's somewhere here. And earlier, she was telling me about tomorrow. She was looking at the calendar or the schedule for the weekend, and she realized, tomorrow I leave my daughter here. And tomorrow, she won't come home and tell me who her friends are, who her new friends are. And at that moment, she was overwhelmed. And I get that. But I want you to know all the skills that you've got, that you poured into your students, will continue. And we will give you the tools you need so that you could leave well, knowing that we will do our best and we will continue to journey with your students. So in this session, you will be hearing from our faculty, Dr. Paul Kack, as well as Dr. Bobby Duke, Dean Duke, about faith integration and how do we do that in the classroom. So you'll get to hear from him or them, and you will also get to hear from Corbin Hornbeek, who will talk to you and discuss about how parents can get involved with our experiences here on our campus. And you will hear from our Dr. Keith Hall. He will be giving you a lot of information, but yet really engaging. He is one of our best speakers, and he will give you an opportunity to really digest all the information and also to start thinking through what does it look like for us to be parents as we release our students. And at the end, you will hear from our Executive Director of our campus safety, Paul Dennis. He will come and talk to you about safety. Safety is important on our campus, and we recognize that, especially in this time of our country. I mean, there's so many things that are going on, and we want you to know, and we want to introduce to you Paul so that he could share with you where his heart is and how he is committed to our safety on our campus. So with that being said, I would like to introduce to you my two friends, Dr. Paul Kack and Dr. Bobby Duke.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's good to be together with you. So Dr. Duke and I started on faculty together. We're starting our 14th year, getting that gray in our beards, right? We started as assistant professors in our disciplines and are now in roles where we get to support and lead and encourage and resource our faculty in different ways to do one of the key things that APU says it's here to do, and that is to provide a distinctly Christian education. And so we sort of have the two sides of the coin that make that work, right? And we want to help you understand how we go about that, working with our faculty, what your students can expect when they come into an APU classroom. We've been hearing, you heard last night from the provost here about faith integration, and we want to unpack that a little bit. You heard from our president this idea of a Christ-centered academic excellence. What does that look like in the classroom? Shino and her team lead the co-curricular side. Bobby and I are engaged in the curricular side, and together what we're trying to do is to create a kind of Christian formation, a holistic Christian formation for our students. So we'd like to take you back a few years to our own experience as undergraduates to kind of give a way to imagine the uniqueness of APU's approach to this. Why don't you start, Bobby?
Yeah, so good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Bobby Duke. I'm the Dean of the School of Theology, and then for this year, I'm stepping in as the Interim Dean of the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. So if your undergrad student has English or has Bible, theology, has applied health, any of those degrees would be under my span of care. But again, as Paul mentioned, 14 years ago, we were new faculty here, and as we've gotten to know people around campus, we realized we come from very different backgrounds. Academic backgrounds. We've been trained in very different ways, but we've all come here as faculty to APU with that passion to instill in your students that desire to take their knowledge and change the world. For me, I went to a university up in Portland, Oregon. It's called Multnomah University. I actually grew up here in Southern California, but I was even remembering yesterday when I was talking with my sister who dropped her daughter off to Adams Hall yesterday. I got to go over to Adams Hall and just give them greetings, and actually posted on Facebook last night a picture of my niece Hannah when she was born 18 years ago, and a picture yesterday in her dorm room. And I will say I choked up a little bit walking back to my office on East Campus as I just remember that moment of growth, and you realize how many years have passed. But I went to a Bible college. I went to a place where I took 90 units of Bible, theology, ministry, because I was very intent on going into ministry, and as the Lord has directed my paths through higher ed and then going on doing research in Dead Sea Scrolls and other things that I do, really using my gifts in the academic environment was the best. But I went to a school where basically when you quickly checked off the GE, the minimal amount, it was all about Bible, theology, ministry, and everyone I went to class with were also going to be missionaries or pastors, teachers, and others that were going to be focused on the Bible, which is quite different from Paul's background.
Right. Yeah, I went to Cal State Northridge not long away. Any Matadors out there? Come on. Okay. Got a great education, and I'm very grateful that they kept their promise in terms of providing me the things that I learned. I took a Bible class, one, it fit a GE requirement, and it wasn't there to strengthen my faith, I'll tell you. It was a challenge to my faith in lots of ways. So I realized that if I'm going to grow in my faith at a university like this, where there are going to be professors who would not only keep faith out of it, but challenge and critique my faith, I needed to do that for myself. I needed to work hard at asking questions like, how does my faith lead me to think differently about what I'm learning in the classroom? And how is what I'm learning in the classroom going to enhance my faith? Because they're not going to tell me that. And so I took classes in my major, and I was always asking additional questions from what the professor would be asking. I took a class in my degree, communication studies, in the theories of persuasion. And they were talking about all these theories and research and this and that. And I found myself asking, yes, but what is the role of the Holy Spirit in seeking to persuade someone to understand and discover and accept the truth? So all these kind of things for me were very different from your 90 units of Bible, and they reflect in some ways our two stories. Well, let's talk about where APU is in that spectrum.
So what we often see is that APU is in this middle space between the kind of university I went to as an undergrad and the kind of university you went to as an undergrad. When it comes to the fact that we are very much a Christian university, you heard last night about Christ-centered academic excellence. So we do have 18 units of Bible, theology, ministry classes that students will take while they are here. And of those different classes, it really is trying to connect the dots between their discipline and how it integrates with faith. So we have this holistic way that even every semester on the idea evaluations that all students will take to evaluate classes. There are 3 faith integration questions on how did this help me think about the world differently? How did this class help me think about how to use this subject matter for the good? And that's in our Bible theology classes and in our general other subjects that we teach here. So this kind of middle space between a pure secular university and where I came from, a Bible college, of really connecting those dots. I mean, as the dean of the School of Theology, there's been times where I have unfortunately steered students away from my own school, because when I got to know them, I realized, you know what, your passions and your interests are actually more in line with whatever degree. I mean, my wife and I are foster parents here in Los Angeles County, so there have been numerous students where when I started talking with them, I said, you know what, your skill set and your interests really sound like you should go into the social work department. Now, I make sure my chairs in the School of Theology don't know that I'm steering people away to behavioral and applied sciences, because that'll get me in trouble. But really, it's that goal to say, what is the strengths of the students and how do we match it best? And being in such a comprehensive university where we have degrees in education, health sciences, humanities, hard sciences, and all the rest is one where we can connect the dots. But they're all wrapped together in this thought of how we can integrate faith in all of them.
It's a real enhancement to students who are not pursuing that Bible major to know that they're getting a foundation in the scriptures from the amazing faculty that Bobby gets to work with as they come into other classes. When they come into those other classes, they come into a kinesiology class or a literature class or a social work class or a biology class, they should not get a Bible class. That's what Bobby and his team are aiming to do. They should get a class committed to the things that they're there for, but they should get it from a bigger perspective. The perspective of Christian faith that invites God into the conversation and the wisdom and insights of the scriptures and of our faith tradition, so that to be here at APU, unlike my experience, is to believe in the value of God's truth being explored as widely and deeply as we can, knowing that we've inherited this great insight and wisdom in the scriptures and in Christian thought over time. So the faculty will come in, the students will come into those classrooms, and that's what faculty get to do. Now, faculty are not, the folks I'm talking about, trained in the way your faculty are. So part of the reason we have an office of faith integration that I get to lead is to support and resource and encourage and assist and mentor the faculty in being able to do that in effective and meaningful kinds of ways. We think of what we do overall as the whole kind of experience of spiritual formation that we're interested in. That's going to happen in the classroom through Bible classes, theology classes, philosophy classes, through business classes, sociology classes, etc., and in the co-curricular that you've been hearing so much about even this morning. Tell us about Wesley.
Yeah. So I think we have a picture here of John Wesley. We had looked for it earlier, so let's see if we're going to have a picture on the screen. There he is. So you may have seen this statue around campus. As you're walking into the Duke building here on West Campus, you will see him off to the left. And by the way, though my last name is Duke, I have never met John and Marilyn Duke, who gave all the money to the building. I think it was my second or third year here is when, it was back when I was still confused as a student.
Yeah, right.
When I would walk into Heritage or other places. But someone once asked me, now, how are you related to John and Marilyn? I said, I've never met them. They said, well, then how did you get your job here? That hurt a little bit. I'm like, UCLA, but I got over it. But I did try to convince a couple of my students once to drop a banner over John and Marilyn's name and put the Bobby Duke Academic Complex, but can't quite do that yet. So, but that statue of John Wesley, when I passed that statue, some really interesting things come into my mind, because it was when I was at that Bible college in Portland, Oregon. I had done a lot of Bible, a lot of theology, and a lot of Greek. But John Wesley, in an address to the clergy he gave in the 1700s, said, you really need to know all the biblical languages if you're going to be able to handle Scripture properly. So I left the church I was at for a few years there doing youth ministry, and I went over to Jerusalem. Spent 2 years doing deep dive into Hebrew studies. Met my wife in Jerusalem. So hey, you get inspired by John Wesley, you go to Jerusalem, you meet your mate. So, and I often joke that when my Texas bride called her parents and said she met someone in the Middle East, they got a little nervous. Then they found out I was from California and just got angry. So all of you Texans out there will get that. But it is one, when I see that John Wesley statue, that's how he inspired me. But John Wesley said, an ounce of love is worth a pound of knowledge. I mean, what he was saying was, whatever knowledge we have in whatever discipline, however deep we're able to go in those subjects, you can use that subject to change the world. And that's why I love working with nursing students and social work students and educators, business students, because every field integrated with faith is something that can change the world for good. My first year here teaching at APU is when my twins were born. It was a very difficult pregnancy, and they were in the neonatal ICU for a few weeks. And that semester I had nursing students, and I looked them right in the eyes and I said, you know what? I'm glad you're not a Bible major. I'm glad you're a nursing major, because right now my life is being changed by the nurses that are saving my children's lives. And I said, that's why I love APU.
So this particular weekend, I'm with you. I've been standing in line at the bookstore, spending money. I've been sitting all weekend, yesterday and today, because I'm dropping my second son off at APU as a freshman. My first son is a resident assistant in one of the residence halls, and he's been here. He's been going through all the stuff that you and I have been talking about, and his faith has been challenged, but it's been enriched along the way. The opportunity to be with faculty who are pushing him to think for himself and to make his faith his own. So thinking about this toolbox idea that you just heard from Shino, I'd like to give you just two tools as we wrap up. In Romans chapter 12, Paul reminds the church at Rome and us through time, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. The word I want you to hear there is renewing. This is a process, right? And if your son or daughter comes home in the second or fourth or sixth week of class and says, I'm learning something new about my Christian faith, something that I hadn't thought about before, ask them questions about that. Inquire. Be along the way with us and with them as they sort of sort things out and begin to take ownership of that for themselves. Peter says, gird your minds for action. Ask your son or daughter, in light of what you're learning, how is that going to make you more active, more of that difference maker we've talked about? How is that preparing you to enter the world as somebody who can take action for the cause of Christ in your field, in your career, in your relationships, your family, and in your world? These are ways that you can support us, asking questions about these things that can help deepen what we're trying to do in the classroom. So Bobby, I need prayer. My wife's out there, we need prayer. We're doing this again. Our faculty, we've been talking about them, need prayer. Would you mind praying for us as we finish
Yes, let's
today?
pray. Dear Lord, we thank you for the opportunity to sit as family members, getting ready to say goodbye tomorrow to our students as they embark on a very exciting journey, a transformative journey. I pray for all of them in whatever majors they have chosen or will choose, that you will guide them and constantly help them see how they can use what they're learning about faith, integrated with that discipline, to become a difference maker and to show love to their neighbor, whether it's business or social work or nursing or education or any of the others that are represented. I do thank you for each of these parents. I thank you for the way they have instilled just a love of learning into their students all these years. And it's all in your son's name. Amen.
Amen.
Next up will be our Vice President for University Advancement and also an APU parent, Corbin Hornbeek.
Well, thank you, Dr. Duke and Dr. Kack. We are Azusa Pacific University parents. We have a senior son, we have a sophomore son, and we have had the privilege of going through the journey that you are about to embark on. If you have a previous son or daughter that's gone through APU, you know what that means. This place is special, and we've had the privilege of watching both of our boys grow, both academically, spiritually, relationally, in their understanding of their God-given design and makeup, and then really beginning to connect that to a sense of, what's my calling in the world? What is God calling me to do? How am I called to make a difference in this world, and looking out beyond themselves? So I know this weekend has been full, and I trust that it has been a special time so far, and I know it will be all the way through tomorrow. So it's a privilege for me to welcome you to the APU family, to the APU parent family. Parents are so important. You're stakeholders in this mission. It's not just that your sons and daughters are here earning a degree and you're watching from a distance and praying for them and certainly paying the bills and all of that, but you're part of the stakeholder family at APU. My role as Vice President of University Advancement is really to be part of the process of helping resource and fund what we do. Everything you see as you've walked around this campus, Dr. Duke a moment ago referenced the Duke Academic Center. The Duke family were former parents of APU, parents that chose to get involved in a very significant way. Our students are very dependent upon things like scholarships, our university endowment, top-tier research equipment, facilities, all of those kinds of things. And we look to our alumni and friends and our parents for opportunities to engage you in the mission of APU. Our hope is that you really would engage deeply in many ways. This spring, a number of regional events will be happening around the country, mainly on the western half of the U.S. where we have most of our constituents. And I'd like for you to be thinking about and be aware of those regional events. It'll be an opportunity for you to hear from President Ferguson, to get to know him and to meet other parents and other alumni of APU. On the screen, and I'll reference a little card here that was in each one of your packets. This card gives you sort of a little bit of a calendar of some important events, and I won't go over all those events right now, but I really encourage you to look at all those events and look for ways to get involved, to stay engaged, to meet other parents, to be part of this APU community. I'd like to introduce Nora McKenzie. Nora, if you could stand up or wave. Nora is on our advancement team, and she will be coordinating a lot of the parent engagement events around the country this year. And so we're taking a more active role in engaging in parents. So if you have questions about how you might get involved, how you might pray for APU students, how you might look to hire APU graduates if you are in a position to employ APU graduates. We'd love for you to think about hiring APU alums. If you live locally and you have opportunities to provide internships for APU students, those are critical ways for students to find their pathways into the marketplace. So thank you so much. Welcome to the Azusa Pacific University family. And at this point, it is my pleasure to introduce to you, I think this is probably what you call the main event, Dr. Keith Hall. He's a colleague of mine that serves on President's Cabinet with me, and a dear friend, an amazing communicator, and I know you will just be blessed by Dr. Keith Hall.
Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Come on, we could do better than that. Good afternoon. Yeah, make some noise, family. We can have fun, too. Yes, indeed. Well, look, I want to echo what's been shared by Dr. Simons and Paul Cack and Bobby Duke. We're so thrilled that you are now a part of the APU family. And, man, I'm grateful that we get to spend this time with you in this Just for Family session. So how are you feeling? Are you okay? How many of you have been excited, been crying a little bit too? Yes, show of hands, you're just being transparent and honest. I appreciate, man, that's almost every hand. And one of the gentlemen here, both hands are up, right? Like, man, this has been tough. This has been tough. So, yeah, I can't help but be reminded, and I still vividly remember the drive to college for me. First of all, I think we need to extend a huge shout out to the Student Affairs team for coordinating the events for this weekend. Can we give them a round of applause for all the work they're doing? Shino, Alex. So if I can keep it real with you, I remember my parents just dropping me off on the curb. We unloaded the van, and they were like, see you at Thanksgiving. I'm like, okay. There were no events. Family really didn't stay over. So I'm grateful that we have this space and time that we get to know you. You get to know us. You have some opportunity to acclimate to our community and understand what it means to be a part of APU. Are you enjoying this? Yes? Good, good. I'm glad to hear that. Glad to hear that. So I vividly remember the whole family. A family of 5. I'm actually originally from Tennessee. Anybody from Tennessee, by the way? Anybody from Tennessee? Wow. Okay, all one of you, all right? Where are you from? Which city? Smyrna, Tennessee. I'm actually from Nashville, Tennessee. Yeah, any country music fans? Nashville is the home of country music. Yeah, born and raised in Nashville, and I am not a fan of country music. I don't know what happened. Anyway, so I went to college in Tennessee, and man, we packed up the van. The day before, my mom and my dad, we went to Kmart. You guys remember Kmart? And we used to go at a certain time. We went when the blue light special was active. You remember the blue light special? We're really dating ourselves, right? I would not even mention that if your student was here because they don't get it at all. You get the blue light special. That's when you would get notebook paper for like 5 cents, 10 cents. You got all those composition books. I was ready. And on the drive to the campus, my younger brother and sister were teasing me. Mom and Dad, there's going to be more chicken at the table. You know, my dad's talking about transforming my room into a weight room and an exercise room. And I was thinking, man, these people do not love me. So any of you, if you were doing some of that on the way here, that's not nice. Not nice at all. But something I observed as we got closer and closer to campus, the ambiance in the van shifted. And it started to get quiet. And my younger brother and sister, they started sobbing a little bit, and they were hiding it, but I could see, okay, this is something different. And I was sitting behind the driver. I can remember this vividly. My dad was driving. I was sitting behind his seat, and I could see my mom in the passenger side, just tears just rolling down her face. And it finally dawned on me, I didn't even think about it until that moment, that this decision that I was making, it wasn't just impacting me, but it was also impacting my family. And that this was an adjustment not just for me, but this was also an adjustment and transition for my family. And so we do share in all sincerity that we're grateful to be in this space with you. We understand that this is an exciting time, but we also understand the sacredness and the sensitivity that comes along with this time too. So we're glad that we get to experience this together. So I know some of you are like, man, that is a long introduction from this Denzel lookalike. All right? All right, I appreciate that. I assure you, I will get to the point. So I want us to... Now, you're not supposed to make me laugh, right? You're supposed to laugh, not me, all right? So for the next few minutes, let's enjoy this. Let's have some discussion about, what does the next 4 years look like? For some of your students, maybe 5 years. For some of your students, 6. And let's have some discussion about some of the adjustments that happen physically, intellectually, spiritually, and then I'll definitely take my seat. So obviously, the transition to college is a significant one. You know, this is such a formidable time for your student. All right, they're already changing. You've been walking with them through their adolescent years, and now they transition to a whole new context, a whole new space. Engaging with students from different lived experiences, from different cultural backgrounds. And so it becomes a very, very unique opportunity for them to grow and to even deepen their faith and to explore what God is calling them to do. So I think I want to start this way. Some of you have heard perhaps of the mindset list. You know, most of your students are a part of Generation Z. Everybody say Generation Z. Yeah, they're digital natives. They came out of the womb understanding the internet, right? They understand screen time. Actually, you know, when the internet was first birthed into the world, we were always encouraging people, jump on the internet. You can use it. You can trust it. And now we actually say, hey, can you limit your internet time, right? So how a shift has occurred. But I thought it would be fun for us to take a look at the mindset list for this incoming class and how there's some significant generational and cultural shifts between their lived experience and many of ours. So here's the first one. Your student has probably never licked a stamp. How many of you remember licking a stamp, going to the post office? There was no such thing as an adhesive back, right? So you had to lick that stamp to apply it. What about this? You remember the rotary phone? If you put that in front of your student right now, they were like, what is this? How do I use this? Actually, I was watching a movie last week, and I saw a payphone in one of the scenes. You remember when we used to carry around quarters in our pockets just in case? So how things have changed. What about this? Hybrid cars have always been in mass production. Okay, that's not a good one. I'll take that one out of the PowerPoint next time. All right. Wi-Fi is an entitlement, right? If you walk into a coffee shop and they don't offer Wi-Fi, I'm talking about good Wi-Fi, there's going to be a problem, right? Even when I'm on a Southwest plane, if that Wi-Fi is out, I'm like, where's the IT director on this plane? Let's get it right. All right. Oh, if you don't understand something, what do? You Google it. You Google it, and that has been their reality. This is the last one. When you see the initials LBJ, what comes to mind for you? Yeah, that's right. Lyndon B. Johnson. Probably for your student, they'll say LeBron James. So how things have changed. So for the next few months, I think it's important for us to consider some of the shifts that will occur within your student. And actually, there's a researcher by the name of Arthur Chickering. He's a psychologist who's done extensive research, or he did, on college students, the different milestones that they encounter over the course of their academic journey. And so I thought I would share this information with you so that you're not alarmed if your student calls you with an update that you're thinking, I didn't expect that. And for us to think, well, how should you perhaps respond in light of all the change that's occurring within them? So let's start first with Vector 1, which is all about developing competence. Obviously, students continue to develop physically, intellectually. They're expanding their interpersonal skills. I want you to hear this and not be alarmed. 50 to 70% of undergraduate students, they change their majors. And actually, in higher ed literature, we're also learning that a lot of students change their majors multiple times. And so I understand that sometimes parents can be taken back, especially if for years, your student has been talking about being an entrepreneur and owning their own business and perhaps building on this idea that they've had since they were 12. And then after a week at that school, they've decided that they want to major in criminal justice. What are they doing up there to my kid, right? So this is a part of the journey, right? Students get the opportunity to interact with faculty who have expertise in different disciplines. They're exposed to different modes of research. And so students, sometimes they can make a more informed decision about, what they're being led to do. And so don't be taken back by that. That is not uncommon. The second vector is managing emotions. So understanding the power of their emotions, how to control their emotions. When things don't go as expected, how do I keep my emotions in check and leverage them in a productive way? I've seen this happen a lot, especially for, let's say, a student who only made A's. I mean straight A's on everything, and that will likely continue here. I don't know, but let's say that they get a B or a C. Sometimes the student is tempted to say, okay, where is that add drop form? I'm getting out of this class, right? So we try to encourage students to say, okay, reframe. How can you learn? Let's take a look at the feedback that was given from the instructor. How can you apply that for the next assignment so that it builds resiliency and proficiency as you move along in a course? And so it's so important that students understand how to fully manage their emotions. So being self-aware, but also demonstrating self-control, which is really the bedrock and the foundation of emotional intelligence. Okay? Vector 3 is all about developing autonomy. So students being able to shift from a space of dependence to independence, where they're working things out on their own. This is a key attribute that most students at the collegiate level establish, right? But it takes time. It requires support. So I'm reminded of when I was in college, I served as an RA for a couple of years. And I was actually, I'll never forget it, I was the RA of Sharp Basement. That was the name of it, Sharp Basement. And right outside my door was the laundry room. And I got up one morning, it was probably around 10:30 in the morning, and I hear like this music, like good old, y'all know Motown greats, like My Girl. Y'all know that song? Yeah, I got sunshine. You know that? You know what I'm talking about. So I hear the music just jamming, and I open my door wondering, okay, which student's listening to that music? And it's one of my students, his mom, and she's in there washing clothes. And I said, uh-oh. Now, we didn't go over this in the training. So I went in and I said, hi, ma'am, how are you? And she said, hi. I said, now, does your student reside on this floor? She was like, and I'm literally in my boxers. I am in my boxers and a T-shirt. And she's like, yeah, my son, his name is this, that, and the other, and I'm Miss Jacobs. And so I just wanted to wash his clothes. And I said, well, you know, he can do that himself. She's like, yeah, but I said, well, let me go get him now and let's teach him. Now, I want you to know our RAs are not obligated to teach your child how to wash their clothes. You've already prepared them for that, right? Now, this is what's wrong. Some of you find this humorous, which I'm glad you find it humorous. Some of you are like, what's wrong with that mom doing that? I don't. Security. No. There's Paul Dennis right there. No. So we had a nice conversation, and she was so sweet. I mean, she had her box tied there and his clothing, and she was very kind. She brought a tin of chocolate chip cookies. So as she was exiting, she took the tide with her, and she was taking the tin. I said, you can leave the tin. Leave those cookies. We'll take care of those. But the point that I'm making is students, they start to develop autonomy. And this translates to their decision making, how they cultivate relationships with their peers, how they deal with disappointment. If something doesn't go expected, them developing the resiliency and the courage to go to an instructor and to have a difficult conversation. Like those are key skills that we want our students to have that we feel translate beyond this campus. Don't you agree? Like students need those types of skills to really be a difference maker in this world. So that's vector 3. Vector 4 is all about identity. So students continue to reflect on the question, who am I? Who am I? What is my faith identity? And some of your students have already started this journey. And so they'll continue to dig deeper about how does my faith intersect with perhaps my lived experience or my interest or my cultural background. And how does that translate to my calling? And so here at APU, we want students to ask those big types of questions and to have the support of faculty and staff to be able to walk with them as they process elements that are tied to their identity and their purpose. Vector 5 is all about interpersonal relationships, and I feel like we've referenced this a bit, but students start to negotiate differences. They understand here, man, everybody doesn't think the way I think. Everybody doesn't come from the same background that I've come from. So how do I learn, not just in the classroom, but even in the co-curricular, in the residence hall, on how to engage with those who are perhaps different than I am? And really cultivate meaningful relationships with these individuals that they're rubbing elbows with. Okay? That's Vector 5. And that is a priority and at the heart of our institution. We call it community. Community. All right? Vector 6 is all about purpose. So students start to consider their career, their life goals, start to make choices that stretch them towards what God is calling them to do. And then Vector 7 is all about being comfortable with abstract. So they reach this level of maturity where they're able to live with the uncertainties of life. We really pride ourselves here at APU on cultivating difference makers. We have no expectation for our graduates to leave this place and to exhibit the status quo and to be mediocre. It's our prayer and it's our vision that your student, once they graduate from this place, that they step into wherever God has called them with purpose and with a heart to initiate and sustain positive change that honors God. Can I get an amen from the congregation? That is our hope. And please know that this vision that we're talking about, that is specific to our faculty who are working in different schools and colleges across this university, it's real in our amongst our student affairs teams that are challenging students to engage in service, to build community, to leverage all that they are for the purpose of God's glory. So this is real here at APU. So we come to this question: what role do you play in the process? Your students going through all these changes. How do you respond? All right? How do you provide the greatest level of support? Because please know, it takes a village. It's not just faculty and staff. Obviously, your student needs you to remain engaged. All right? Some of you are like, shoot, you just had to say that. Right? But what's the best way to do that? What's a strategic way to approach that? So you heard that question. I want you to do me a favor. I would love for you to take 5 minutes and maybe talk with the person in your area to process this question. What role does family play in the process? How can you offer the greatest level of support as your student engages this level of change? So why don't we do this? Don't nobody leave. I'm serious. Stay here. Stay here. See, some of you were tempted. You were thinking it. Stay here, just share your name, where you're from, your credit card information. Share all of that right now. No, not the credit card information. So take 5 minutes and process this question together, and then we'll reconvene. Go, 5 minutes. Okay, thank you so much for sharing. Now you have a new friend, all right? So I'm curious, for someone who's able to project, what did you hear in your conversation? So what are some unique ways that family can offer support as your student goes through these changes and reach these developmental milestones here at APU? So what did you hear? If you don't mind just kind of yelling it out. Yes. Yeah, so supporting different. What's your name? Frail? Fran? Where are you from? From where in Texas? San Antonio, Texas. Can you give her a round of applause for sharing that? Thank you. It's awesome. What is it in San Antonio? It's River. I like that place. That's good. And what's her name? Jenny, where are you from, Jenny? Stockton. Awesome. That's not San Antonio, but it's Stockton. That's great. Can we give Jenny a round of applause? Thank you for sharing. It's good stuff. All right, let's give one more. Let's get to maybe one or two more. Yes. Yeah, encourage them to engage the process. Go through the process. What's your name? Wendy, where are you from, Wendy? Lancaster. Let's give Wendy a round of applause. Thanks for sharing, Wendy. It's good. Let's get one more. One more. Yes. Yes, sir. Oh, man. Did everybody hear that? What's your name? Alex, share with the group. You need to write this one down or text it to yourself. Send care packages. Enough for your student and us. No, students appreciate care packages. And you would be surprised how many students will walk around on campus with a tin of biscuits. This is what my mom sent me, or this is what my dad sent. It makes a difference, and it usually comes at the right time. Alex, where are you from? Orlando, the home of Disney World. And the Magic, they're not too good. Not too good. All right, let's give Alex and his family a round of applause. Awesome. Awesome. Do we have one more, one burning? Okay, right here. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, what's your name? Shelly. Where are you from, Shelly? Huntington Beach. But born in where in Tennessee? Memphis. Listen, okay. Look, we're about to have a moment. We're about to put a pause on this presentation. So listen, Memphis has the best barbecue in the nation. I know people from Texas like to argue. There is no argument. There is no argument. There's one little spot, like a hole in the wall, called Rendezvous. Oh my goodness, you don't even need sauce. Let's give Wendy and her family a round of applause. Appreciate that response. So that is important. And Wendy, I really appreciate that comment. Remember, your student, they need to start really establishing a sense of autonomy. Obviously, they want to hear from you. They appreciate your guidance and their counsel. But obviously, you don't want to make a decision for them. You want to help them make an informed decision. I see some hands that are waiting. Is that like hallelujah, or is that like you want to share? You have one more to share. What's the little guy's name that sleep right there? I mean, I really put him to sleep like immediately. Carlos, he's a handsome guy. Okay, go ahead, share with us. Oh my, did everybody hear that one? What's your name? I'm sorry? Carol Ann. Where are you from, Carol Ann? I'm sorry? Pasadena. So Carol Ann said, hey, all of us, we need to be praying for our students. Right? And that's a good one. Yeah. That's probably most important, right? That we're constantly praying for them as they engage this process, as they expand their faith identity, as they learn more about themselves, as they think about the impact that they want to have on the world, and to ensure that they're walking in God's purpose. That is our prayer. That's good, Carol Ann. Thank you. Thank you. And so you had a good response, but that's a good response with also a wave like hallelujah too. That was good. That was good. So listen, we polled students a few years back, and we wanted to ask them, hey, how can your family member be of the greatest support considering the transitions and the changes that you experience here in college? And I'm going to just share with you some of the broad strokes that they share with us, and this may be helpful. So this is the first one. Stay connected, but give me space too. Some of you are like, I've been hearing that for a while, right? And there is like a delicate balance. Like, students want you to stay engaged. They want you to send them text messages. They want to know that you're on their mind and that you're praying for them. But they also want their own what? Space. Now, something that I've talked to some parents about that you may want to consider is, what does that look like? So in some families, it needs to be scheduled. So you know, every Tuesday, Thursday night, hey girl, we'll FaceTime and I want to see your face. I want to make sure that you're eating. I want to make sure that you look well. And if that works for your student and that works for you, go for it. But for some of you and your families, it's more organic communication. When you're thinking about them, you send them a text, you call them. So just be thinking about what's the best mode and path to ensure that you remain connected. And for your student to know that you constantly remain on their hearts. One suggestion that I would offer to you is, you know, during a college semester, there are certain times that are more demanding than others, right? So like midterms. Obviously, once you transition and your student, on Monday, it becomes real, right? It's real now, but it's, they're in a very supportive environment. Our alpha leaders are amazing in helping them acclimate. But sometimes it can be challenging like the first day. So that would be like a perfect time to send them a message to connect. Hey, how was your day? Who did you meet? All right. What did you eat? All right. How much money do you need? So it's a good time to really, so think about like strategic times that you can connect. And as you talk with them, you'll know about maybe a major project that they're working on or a major paper that they're writing, and maybe it's a little stressful for them. So the student says, stay connected, but give me space too. All right, here's the second one. Please ask questions, but not too many. Right? Ask questions to inquire about their experience, but when you become Inspector Gadget, that's not a good one. Give me like one of those old inspectors that we used to watch on television. Yeah, when you become Sherlock Holmes, it becomes problematic. All right? Please ask questions, but not too many. And these are shared by students. All right? Share your counsel, but allow me to think how? Critically. So, yes, share your thoughts. Maybe highlight some avenues and different directions, different possibilities. But please give me an opportunity to think critically and make my own decision. But students definitely want to process with their family. Right? They want that. They appreciate that. They need that level of support. Here's the last one. Expect change and please be supportive in the process. Kind of similar to what Wendy shared. Hey, can we give all the parents a huge round of applause for engaging this segment? It's good. It's good. So I have one more piece of information to share with you. You may not know this, but APU, we place a strong emphasis on holistic student success. Can I see your eyes on this? Because I think this is really, really key. You know, at some institutions, student success is equated with just making good grades. And here at APU, we don't feel like that's enough. That student success is broader and it's more extensive than just making good grades. Yes, we want all of our students to make high marks, no doubt about it. But let me ask you a question. Is it possible for a student to have a 4.0 GPA or maybe even higher, but still not thrive as a person? Yes. Yes. And so that's the reason why you're hearing from our VP of Student Affairs, Dr. Simons. That's why you're hearing from Dr. Cack, and you're hearing from Dr. Duke, and you're hearing from Corbin Hornbeek. We want students to be fully engaged in the experience. Yes, that means being engaged academically, but it also means being engaged socially and spiritually and culturally. I see some heads that are nodding in the space. Does this make sense? Yeah, so this is so important. Actually, we have a faculty member here. Her name's Dr. Lori Schreiner, and she's developed this construct of what it means to be a thriving student. The bottom line is that we don't want your students surviving college. We want them to thrive. Everybody shout thrive. Thrive. Come on, shout it like you got some flavor. Say thrive. Thrive. Say it loud where your student can hear you. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that was good. We want your see, you got some soul. That's good. We want your student to fully thrive. So this is always my prayer when I get to meet your student at some point. When they're at that time of commencement and they're adorned in their robe and their cap and gown, and if I ask them, if you have one word to describe your experience at APU, what's the word? It would be our prayer that they would say, thrive. Yeah, it was filled with challenges. I was stretched in so many ways. But I can say with certainty that I thrived as a person. And now I am equipped and ready to make a difference in the world. That is our prayer. Now, hear me out. One major factor that leads to thriving outcomes, we need your support on this, is sense of community. Students cannot really optimize all that they are if they're just going to class and going back to the dorm room. Students need to be engaged in the social fabric of the institution. That's so important. So when you're talking to your student, please ask them, hey, who did you meet? or where did you go? And they say, hey, I don't think I'm going to go to the football. Say, girl, go to the football game. Have a good time. And if sports are not their thing, there are a host of extracurricular opportunities that really help them not to just focus on academics, but for them to develop student success on a broader sense. Are you hearing what I'm saying? And there's actually research that support this, that students who optimize the collegiate experience, guess what the predictive factor is? Is social connectedness. If they can cultivate one meaningful relationship with one person on this campus, their level of thriving goes up exponentially. And that could be with a faculty member. And by the way, our faculty, they love getting to know our students and being relational with our students. Maybe it's having a mentor, whether that's a peer mentor or a faculty or staff mentor. What I'm trying to impress on every family member that can hear me, challenge your student not just to be engaged academically, but to be engaged socially. Can I get some head nods in the space so I know that you hear that? Okay, thank you so much. That's very, very important. The other piece is we want to challenge students to also understand their God-given capacity. And Corbin referenced that in his remarks. So all of us are wired differently, right? How many of you in this space, you're extroverted? Like you never meet a stranger. Yes, your hands are up and the person beside you, they're pointing at you, right? Some of your students are that way. I mean, as soon as you couldn't even slow the car down you couldn't even slow the car down. They were ready to jump out and meet someone new, right? But then some of you have students who are deep thinkers and they love to ask questions. Question after question. Question after question. And that is a strength. So we want students to land on their unique strengths orientation. This actually comes from Donald Clifton. He did a research study. What would happen if we study what is right with people, which is so countercultural, right? Because most of us, when we walk into space, what do we ask? What's wrong with this place? That spouse that you're sitting beside, when you first met him, you were like, what's wrong with this dude? No, I'm eyeing you, fellow. I'm eyeing. What did you order? Right? So, but the strengths perspective, it really gets at this notion that every person, all of our students, they step onto this campus with talent. And it's our hope that they can develop those talents that God has deposited within them into strengths, where they're able to accomplish meaningful results. One other thing that we know is that students who use their strengths, they tend to be 6 times more likely to be engaged, and that's academically, socially, spiritually, and other areas. All right, so name them, develop them, use them. Hey, one question, I'm almost done, I promise. One question that, I've rendered and I've noticed that people tend to be uncomfortable with, and and students know it's coming, especially if they're applying for a student leadership position, or the question is, what are your strengths? How many of you have been asked that on the interview before? What are your strengths? Yeah. And most of us in this room, we have the maturity. We know how to articulate our strengths. But you would be surprised the number of students who look to the sky and like, God, please give me the words to answer this question. So we do not want that to be the experience of our students. This semester, for most of your students, they're enrolled in first-year seminar, right? Some of you have seen their schedule, GE 100. And within the context of that course, they will take the Clifton Strengths Finder, and they will discover their top 5 talent themes. How many of you have taken this resource before? Yeah, it's so helpful. Because sometimes, when people ask, what are your strengths? We say, well, I'm people-oriented. Well, we all are, right? But how do you hone in even more? So the goal is to really help them discover their talent. Who is this? Yeah, Albert. Who said that? What's your name? Heather. Where are you from? Idaho. Give Heather a round of applause. Yes, indeed. Albert Einstein. We know that Albert Einstein was very talented as a kid. Actually, if you read his history, he blew up a lot of stuff before he became the renowned scientist that we know of him today. But it started with what? Talent that was refined and developed into a strength. All right? Who is this guy? Yeah, before he started changing colors, right? This is Michael. This is I shouldn't have said that. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that I love Michael Jackson. This is when he sung with Jackson 5. At this stage in his life, nobody would have said that he was the king of pop, right? He had talent, but with practice and experience and refinement, he became probably arguably one of the best musicians and vocalists of all time. Right? Okay, what about this guy? Yeah, and many of us, we know the story of Michael Jordan. In high school, he was actually cut from his basketball team. Hate to be that basketball coach, right? I mean, and so one strength we know that Michael Jordan had, or talent, was competition. So think about how he developed it and how it was refined, and many will argue that he was probably one of the best athletes of all time. Multi-NBA championship winner, MVP with the Chicago, not the Orlando Magic. Right? Yeah, so Michael Jordan. All right, here's another picture. Does anybody know this guy standing beside Denzel Washington? Malcolm Gladwell, New York Times bestseller. If you've ever read a book by Malcolm Gladwell, I met him at a summit in Orange County, and I will say, to be transparent with you, my first thought was, Malcolm, we got to do something with the hair. We got to do something with the hair. But if you've heard him speak, or if you've had a conversation with him, you know that one of his top strengths is analytical. He knows how to ask thoughtful questions that creates these opportunities of research and exploration. Does anybody recognize this guy standing beside me? Yeah, Shaquille O'Neal. So I was in Atlanta, one of my favorite cities. I was speaking at a conference, and right before a Hawks game, I said, let me go get my workout on. And I was working. I mean, I felt good about myself. I was doing curls and bench press. And while I was doing my curls, I felt something, I kid you not, it felt like a tree log come across my chest. And I lost my breath, and I turned around, and all I saw was another man's chest, which was a little odd. And I looked up, and this is exactly what I heard. I heard this. What up, big dog? And I'm like, what's up, Shaq? It's good to see you. So for literally 10, 15 minutes, I got to work out with Shaquille O'Neal. Now, I did make the mistake of lifting the same weight Shaq did. And you know how they give you those key cards to get in your room? I couldn't even lift my arm to get the key card in the... Fortunately, there was one of the housekeepers on the floor. She came and kind of helped me. I mean, it was really, it was embarrassing. It was embarrassing, all right? So those two guys, I mean, Shaq has a gregarious personality. He doesn't meet a stranger. According to Clifton StrengthsFinder, we would say that he has the strength of woo. He loves to win others over. He was telling jokes and giving people high five. The point of all of this, we want your student to have clarity on their talent. Right? Studying looks different if you know how you're wired. You cultivate relationships differently if you know how you're wired. You lead differently based on what God has given you. And this is the bottom line. Whatever God places within us, I firmly believe that we should be good stewards of it. But you can't steward what you're not aware of. And so that's the very reason why we want students to go through this experience. And so we want you to know they'll be going through it, and even ask them, hey, have you taken that assessment yet? For those of you who, if you haven't taken it, you may want to take it with them. All right, so I'll give you a URL address for those of you who may want to go online, buy a code, and you can also discover your top 5 and have some conversation with your student around the StrengthsFinder themes. So ultimately, and my time is almost up. Ultimately, we want your student to develop their talent into strengths. And the best analogy that I can think of, a brother from the South, is pancakes. So listen, my mom, I want you to hear this good. My mom, Jackie Hall, she is an excellent cook. And anytime the family and we go back home for Christmas, I don't need an alarm clock. Guess what wakes me up? You already know. I mean, my mom, she makes biscuits and, listen, she's not the healthiest person. Bacon and sausage on the same table. I'm sorry, all right? I appreciate the applause, all right? And my mom makes the best pancakes. I don't like everybody's pancakes. My mom knows that I like pancakes that are crispy on the edges. I like that crunch when I bite into it. And I don't like all that fruit syrup. I like just some good, warm maples. Can I get an amen? So, but listen, not once has my mom ever come to the table as we're about to eat breakfast with a bowl of pancake batter. Pancake batter has potential, but it's unrefined. But when you take that pancake batter and you expose it to heat and you flip it, and since I have a doctoral degree, I'm going to say you flop it, you have this refined product. What am I saying? Your students are hungry. No, I'm just kidding. No, your students, they're like that pancake batter, right? They have tons of potential. But over the next 4 years, it's all about them refining who they are, right? Because talent by itself is just not enough. Talent needs to be developed into strengths, and we're really committed to that process and walking with your students during that process. I love this thought by Eric Ries. He wrote a book some time back entitled Shape, how God uses our strengths, our hearts, our abilities, our personality, our experiences to carry out work and ministry in the kingdom. This is what he said: discovering your gifts is not the ultimate goal, but using them to bless the lives of others is. Does that resonate with you? Does that resonate? So that's really our heart, even for your students. So thank you for being gracious. I want to leave you with this quote: growth is never by mere chance. It's not coincidental. It is the result of forces working together. We're honored and we're privileged to partner with you to help your student cultivate and become a difference maker, for them to reflect on their faith and who God is calling them to be. We understand that it's not just us, but it's literally a village that envelops them, a village that's praying for them, a village that's investing in them so that they can become the men and women that God has called them to be. Can I pray with you just for a moment? God, thank you so much for this day. Thank you for all the parents and family members, grandparents, cousins, brothers, sisters, all the family members that are represented in this space, supporting the students who are part of our incoming class. God, we pray for our students. Bless them with favor, bless them with strength, bless them with energy. God, bless them with insight as they walk with us the next few years. We're so excited about the work that you will do in them and the impact that their work will have on this earth. So, Father, we give you praise in advance for what you plan to do in them. In Jesus' name, we offer this prayer. Amen. Can we give God praise this afternoon? Thank you. So I have the distinct pleasure of introducing our Executive Director of Campus Safety. He's a dear friend of mine. Our institution has really been blessed by his leadership and vision. He takes safety, not just on this campus, but in this community very, very seriously. And so we thought it would be wise for you to hear from him. Can you please welcome up Paul Dennis?
Well, good afternoon. Uh-oh. Good afternoon. Is this working? There you are. Okay. Hey, I want to say to you guys, congratulations, first of all. Congratulations in helping your students make a great choice. This institution, let me tell you, I believe in it 100%. And 33 years ago, around this time, I walked onto this campus as an 18-year-old freshman, right? Moms dropped me off just like you guys are doing right now. I was a student athlete, I was on the track team, and I came here to get my education. And I didn't know what my major was going to be. I didn't know where I was going to end up. I didn't know what I wanted to do exactly. But this institution helped me figure that out, right? It helped me figure it out. So I lived in the dorms my freshman year, and then I moved over to the modular housing units my sophomore year. And then my junior and senior year, I moved up big time and went across the street, lived in the apartments at Bowles, right? Moved on up. Senior year came about, and I closed my eyes and I asked God, okay, where do I go? Where do I go from here? And God gave me an opportunity, because when I first came here, I thought maybe I was going to, do my 4 years and then just go out into the world, right? Far, far away and make something of myself. So my senior year came about, and I asked God, what's the plan for me? Where do I go? God took me 3 blocks west of here to the Azusa Police Department and said, this is where I want you to do your work. Man, 3 blocks west, okay. So I went to Azusa PD, and I started there as a police officer, worked hard, and worked a variety of assignments, from patrol to investigations to being on the SWAT team for 17 years. For 9 of those 17 years, I was the SWAT team commander, so a lot of experience. I got to do a lot of different things, and worked hard and was able to promote through the ranks, ultimately retiring last August at the rank of captain. So after 26 and a half years serving the city of Azusa as a law enforcement officer, thank you. God took me to the finish line, and I said, wonderful, wow, it's great. I finished the race. And so then I asked God, what's next for me? Is it time for me to go out into the world now and far, far away and do something? And God said, son, pack your bags. I want you to walk 3 blocks east and go right back where you started. And I said, yes, sir, because I don't argue with him. He has a plan for my life. And I didn't know at the time, when I was 18 years old on this campus, that my plan was to serve the city of Azusa and then come back and gather all of that knowledge and information that I was able to acquire through working as a law enforcement professional for the city of Azusa, and take that information and bring it here to Azusa Pacific University, and let's build this campus and ensure the safety of the students that come here. So that's my mission and that's my job. But I cannot do that by myself. And before I came over here, I had the opportunity to speak to your students over on East Campus, and I shared with them that I need their help, right? I need their help because there's a lot of challenges out in our society. I'm not going to hold any punches here. We could turn on the TV and we see all kinds of stuff happening, right? That's the reality, right? And we have to be prepared for that. And it takes a body of people, not just campus safety, not just students, but even you guys. And the first thing, like Dr. Keith said, and I think someone in our audience on this side said, we got to pray, right? We got to keep this place covered in prayer, right? But we also have to do our part. And I'm telling you, campus safety is committed to doing their part to ensuring the safety of your students and your family members while they're here. But I can't do it on my own. And I've got some of my team members here that I want you guys to see and have an idea of who it is that is helping develop these plans to ensure the safety of your students. So my deputy chief over here, Chris Carlos, if you'd stand up, Chris. Chris has 15 years of law enforcement experience with the city of Baldwin Park. He retired as a sergeant from Baldwin Park and came to APU and serves as my right-hand man in campus safety. But not only does Chris have law enforcement experience, this is a brilliant mind. He has a doctorate degree in education. He's really the brains behind this operation. He's the one that I really lean to for a lot of expertise and knowledge. And I'm so honored and excited to have Chris as part of the team. Xavier, where's my friend? There he is. Lieutenant Xavier Torres, would you stand up, please? Lieutenant Xavier Torres and I, we go way back. Xavier was born and raised here in Azusa, so he knows this community very well. But Xavier and I mentioned I did 27 years with the city of Azusa as a police officer, retiring as a captain. Xavier did 30 years with the city of Azusa, retiring as a lieutenant in October of last year. And as soon as I heard he was retiring, I grabbed him and scooped him up and brought him over here on my team. Xavier spent 16 years on the SWAT team. We work together intimately, very close, and have a lot of experience, and a great guy to work with. But in addition to these two that I've introduced you to, there's 28 other men and women on the campus safety team that are here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year on duty, ensuring that this campus is safe, right? We don't sleep at all. We never have any days. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Beyond our internal team, we extend outside of the university, right? Our relationship is rock solid, not only with the Azusa Police Department, but with Covina PD, Glendora PD, Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. We stay connected with those agencies regularly. Our relationship with Azusa PD, though, runs extremely deep, and not just because I'm retired from there and Xavier is retired from there, but even before we got here, the relationship between the local police department and the university was rock solid. And an example of that is that the PD and the university years ago collaborated and recognized the need to have an Azusa police officer on our campus. So I want to introduce you to our, there's a lot of acronyms here at APU, so I'm going to throw another one at you, URO. University Resource Officer. So Officer Brandon Signs, if you would stand up for me, please. Brandon is a full-time sworn police officer from the city of Azusa. He is assigned to APU's campus. He is here on duty. His shift, his assignment is right here to the university, right? So his presence is on campus every day on a regular basis. He's interacting with your students, and he's a resource and our direct link to the PD and getting information to us in a timely fashion. One of the things that's really important is how do we, if a critical incident does happen on campus, how do we get that information out to our students, right? And we have systems in place that afford us the opportunity to do that. On our campuses, we have what's called a Wayland system. So this is an audible alarm system that we're able to activate to communicate a message, whether it's an active shooter on campus, God forbid, whether it's a weather incident that requires us to shelter in place. We would be able to sound that alarm, and no matter whether you're on the East Campus or you're here on the West Campus, you'd be able to hear that and be able to respond appropriately. In addition to that, we use a mass text messaging system called Everbridge, right? Now this one's really, really important. Okay. In the event of an emergency that we have to convey information out to the students, the primary way we are going to do that is through this Everbridge system. So when your students registered for school and they put down their personal information, and in particular their telephone number, that number that was given to us is the number that's automatically entered into Everbridge system. And so when we send out a message, it's going to go to whatever that number was. Now, I'm challenging your memories a little bit. If you think that number that was registered was your number and not your student's number, I need you guys to make sure that you contact your student and make sure that their number has been given to us so that it's in the Everbridge system. Okay? As much as we want to communicate and want you guys to know, we need your students to know what to do, how to act, how to behave, how to respond to what that incident is, and the way we tell them and communicate that is through our Everbridge system. Okay? Campus Safety also has a social media presence. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on Instagram. We communicate activities and things that we're doing there as well. But something in particular that I'm really, really excited about, and it's still under a little bit of research right now, but as you're walking around this weekend and learning about our campus, you may have seen these different blue lights all about campus. Those are emergency blue light systems, right? Where if a student is somewhere and they need to contact dispatch, they can go to one of those stations, press a button, and they'd be directly connected to campus safety. Well, I would like to figure out a way to get that blue light into the thing that they have in their hands all the time, right? Which is this thing, right? And the technology is out there. Our president is a big believer in best practices and highest quality, all right? If you've heard Dr. Ferguson speak, you may have heard him mention that. And so from a campus safety perspective, I'm all about that, right? What are some good cutting-edge technology that we can utilize to our advantage to keep our students safe? And so we are in the early stages of testing a system that would essentially put those blue lights in the hands of our students, and it does a little bit more than that. For example, we're here on West Campus. We've got one of our bigger libraries here on West Campus, and students have to study late at night, all right? I had to study late at night. I did study, really. I did. I graduated. I studied. And so if they have to walk from West Campus over to East Campus, this application would allow them to be able to press a button, it would dial into dispatch, a map would pop up, and we'd be able to follow them as they're walking back to their campus to ensure that they got there safely. Just little things like that, right? And maybe if they didn't want campus safety to follow them because they don't want us all up in their Kool-Aid and we don't even know the flavor, right? That's a joke. Then they can send a message to their friend, and their friend can be able to just watch them, follow them home, and then once they're home, they can disconnect. And along the way, if there was an issue, they would press a button that would notify campus safety or notify their friend that there's an issue, and that friend can call them, that friend can call an emergency services to go and check on them. I'm challenging my team, my staff. We have to continually try to find best practices that we can employ and bring to this university to keep our students safe. And that's my commitment as the director to you guys and to your students. I shared with your students before I came over here that campus safety, our primary mission is to ensure their safety while they're here, right? To make sure that folks who have ill intent don't come onto our campus and cause problems. That's mission number one and goal number one, and we're committed to that, right? But equally important to me is that we are engaged with our students, right? Dr. Keith talked about student success. That's just not, faculty members here at this institution that are in the classroom imparting knowledge to your students. That's not just their job, but campus safety plays a role in that as well, and I as the director take that very seriously, and I task my team to be engaged, to interact with your students, right? A classic example of that is, I've shared with my staff, if there's a open mic night going on up at UTCC, Upper Turner Center, and the students are up there, I want my staff to go up there and encourage those students and applaud those students and engage and interact with them, right? Our mission is to, keep them safe and ensure their safety, but it's also to ensure that their experience and their time while they're here at APU is a positive one and a good one, and that happens through us being involved and being engaged with them. Each one of the resident areas on campus, whether it's the dorms, whether it's the modular housing, or whether it's one of the apartment units, every one of them have a campus safety officer that is designated as a liaison for that particular living area, okay? So that particular campus safety officer knows what's going on in that area as it relates to activity, and they're regularly meeting with the resident directors over there and dialoguing with them to ensure that we are doing everything that we can or need to do to make sure that that particular area is safe. Some of the services that we offer, I mentioned, we're open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We patrol campus all day long and all night long. Safety escorts, we provide those. The university has a shuttle service that runs between East Campus and West Campus. That service usually terminates about 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, and at that time, campus safety takes over that role. So even if it's after hours and your student is at one side of campus and needs to get to the other, if for some reason they feel they need an escort to get back to the other side because they didn't feel comfortable walking alone, they can call campus safety. One of our staff members would come over and pick them up and make sure that they got back to where they needed to go safely. Another program that we offer is what's called our RAD program. This is our self-defense program that we offer for our female students currently. And it's just basically an opportunity for them to learn some really basic self-defense tactics in the event that they found themselves in a situation like that where they'd have to use them. We make this program really fun, really exciting, and a lot of students have really benefited from it. And then finally, we at APU, there is a criminal justice program here, and there are opportunities in campus safety for students to be employed within our division. And it's a great way for students that maybe have an interest in the criminal justice field to get a little bit of hands-on experience. And it's not just exclusive for criminal justice majors. It could be just for any student that was seeking an on-campus job. Our student employees play a huge role in the success of our department. So I'm going to be around after this and throughout the afternoon. If you have any questions associated with campus safety, please don't hesitate to come up to me or any of my staff members. More than happy to answer those questions. Again, I congratulate you all for making a great decision to support your students in coming to this university. I'm a living example of how this institution prepares a man or a woman for the challenges of our society. I kid you not, the time that I spent here as a student, being in a Christ-centered institution, and the tools and equipment that I was able to arm myself with before I went out into the job field, I am so thankful to this university for preparing me the way that it did. And again, you have made a great decision in supporting your child in coming to this institution. I take everything that I said this afternoon to you guys extremely serious. And not just because your kids are here, but because my kid is here too. My kid moved in this weekend just like yours did, all right? And best believe I want to make sure that my daughter is safe while she's here. And if my daughter is my daughter, then for the next 4 years that your kids are here, they're my son and daughter here. They're my son and daughter as well. And I take that very seriously. God bless you guys and have a great afternoon.
All right, as we finish our time this afternoon, I pray that everybody is doing well. Just wanted to make a couple of announcements before we exit and move on to what is left for the afternoon and also the evening. So the first piece I wanted to mention is for the next couple of hours until about 5 o'clock, if you are a family or a guest with residential students, you have a little bit of time in the schedule to be able to take some rest, to be able to make that final target run just down the street, whatever you might need to do to kind of get your students situated. We wanted to make sure that we provided some time in the schedule to do that. If you're a family or a guest of any commuter students, we actually have a commuter-specific event happening on East Campus called The Dome is Your Home. We realize that as a commuter student, not living on campus, where's a place that students can hang out in, maybe have a place to study, have a place to be able to hang out with their friends and kind of create that sense of belonging that we've been talking about. And so the Cougar Dome is located on East Campus, and if you look on your APU Events app, the location would be identified for you when you click on that event. So would encourage you to attend that. Students, family members, and guests are welcome to that event. And then finally, for the evening, we actually have what we call our Cougar Family Festival that will be from 5 to 9, right back where we had President's Picnic and Candela. They're currently setting up carnival rides right now. We actually have a rock wall out there. We have a big, I think a big swing out there, a variety of different types of rides. We'll have face painting. We'll also have a photo booth out there. We'll also have an In-N-Out truck that will be your dinner for the evening. So it should be a really fun time to be able to enjoy and really share some quality time with your students this evening as we spend our night together. So just wanted to mention those things. Like Chief or Paul mentioned, campus safety will be right here to my left, your right, to answer any questions that you may have. But otherwise, please be well, and we'll see you later on tonight. Thank you.